Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Joey Harris, and we are broadcasting from makeshift studios in the shadow of South Central Virginia. Follow the show on Twitter and Blue Sky at Cup of Joe Pod. You can email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. You can support the show at paypal.me/cupofjoepod. I am also on Cash App and Venmo if you would like to support that way at the Joey Harris. And of course, patreon.com/babykangaroomedia. For bonus episodes of the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show, the Joey Harris Super Show, the Green Room, Book Club Baristas, and so much more, just $5 a month for hours of extra content. And if you sign on now and use the promo code Joey at checkout, you get 20% off your first month. So it would only be $4 for your first month. And speaking of the Patreon, I'd like to bring on my Cup of Joe on Patreon co-host, Tyler, to help me dissect night 2 of WrestleMania 41. Tyler, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited because this is the night.
This was the big one and had some really big moments and sort of a main event that I'm not quite sure what they were doing, but they kind of built up on it on the Raw after WrestleMania. We'll go over some of that as well.
Yeah, I think I might have said this on the first episode, but if I didn't, I'll say it here. Night 2 was a WrestleMania card. Night 1 was a pre-show.
Yes.
Except for the main event. I'll say except for the main event.
I will say it used to be, I don't know if you remember back in your young days when they had the WWF versus WCW pay-per-views.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be like for WCW, the undercard was always great. The main event always sucked. And it was always the reverse for the WWF pay-per-views. They always had great main events with lousy undercards for the most part. So we're going to discuss night 2 and a little bit of what happened on Raw. All right. Going back to, I documented the entire thing for the most part on Threads as I was looking at it. So I said Ava Max with the national anthem. Have no idea who Ava Max is. I knew Jelly Roll from night 1. I didn't know Ava Max, or I'll be honest with you, about 90% of the people that they showed on camera.
I knew a couple.
Then again, we went to the Superstar Arrivals. We get the night 2 kickoff video, and then Stephanie out to welcome everyone, just like they did last year. And then the announced teams are introduced. And we start out hot, which one of my favorite matches of the entire weekend, the Women's World Championship match, Io Sky versus Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley. And I said Io out first, and to me, the champion should always come out last. And I said, I think Io is going to shine tonight. And then I said, Bianca out, and she looks ready. And that's an interesting outfit for Rhea, is what I said. Then I said, here we go. Io has nothing to lose. Then the double blockbuster. Impressive suplexes by Bianca. She really showed her strength there. And then was it Io? I didn't put who did. Somebody did the Razor's Edge in this. I think it was Rhea. I think it was Rhea because I think Razor is her favorite wrestler.
I think so. Off the top of my head, don't remember, but yeah, it was. Okay, yes, it was. Yeah.
Nice series of moves. After a while, it looked like Bianca and Rhea are going back and forth and all of that. And they kind of take each other out, and Io takes advantage and gets the pin. So I said Io did it. And Bianca looking dejected. I think somebody told me what they're going to do is they're going to turn Bianca heel to eventually set her up to feud with Jade.
Mm.
And
yeah, that would make sense.
And then either free up somebody else to go after Io or leave Io and Rhea to battle back and forth. But I'll say this just as I wasn't going to cover it, but it's the only thing I'm thinking about right now. They had Chelsea Green lose her United States title on SmackDown. I think that frees her up to go after Io, because I think they're going to. Someone said that they think Chelsea Green is going to win Money in the Bank and is going to cash in on either Tiffany or Io. It may be Tiffany. I don't know.
I could see that.
Yeah. So Bianca looking dejected. Yeah.
Oh, no, I'll let you finish that. I was just thinking of my thoughts of the match.
Yeah, but that's where I was going for I said Bianca looking dejected. I think they are going to go the heel route with her and have her feud with Jade.
I thought it was a really good match, like a 4.5. I'll make the argument, probably one of the best women's matches that I have seen probably since, like, I think it was WrestleMania 32 when it was Charlotte, Becky, and
Ronda Rousey?
It was no, it wasn't Ronda. It was Mercedes, but Sasha Banks.
Oh, Sasha Banks. Okay. Yeah, I can get that. Triple threats are they're tricky, especially in the fatal four-way later on. It was also tricky, but I think that they pulled the one from the night before, this one, and the fatal four-way. I think they pulled all of them off in believable ways. But we go to a hype video for the Sin City street fight, Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest. And I said Drew has been consistently good this past year, and that I expect tonight to be no different. He has become one of my favorite people the last year, especially from, like, what was it, about February of 2024, when you find out that Punk's injured and out. From that point on, he becomes one of my favorite people.
I love Drew McIntyre, like, to begin with, and then his heel run has just been one of the best heel runs in, like, recent memory. I will say, coming into the match, I wasn't really excited because, not that I dislike him, but I don't think Damian Priest has the hype that they're trying to put behind him. So, like, coming in, I was like, I'm not really excited for a match. But
I feel he had it last year when he did that cash in, because I was not expecting it. I had completely
no,
put it out of my
I
mind.
wasn't either. And
then I'm like, yeah, and it felt like everybody was behind him, and then they had no idea how to follow up with that. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to go all the way with him, and then, like, oh, where are we going with him?
It just felt like his title run was, like, really bad. And he had a lot of big botches during his title match, which, like I said, for me, like, killed the hype behind him. Again, not that I dislike him. I do like him. I just don't think he's on the level of Drew McIntyre.
Yes. And there was the one where they go, is it the one where they go to France? And he had that big botch, and somebody was like, yeah, those ropes, there was something wrong with them, because the ref tells AJ these ropes are very loose. You need to watch it, because, you know, AJ does
the phenomenal forearm off of the ropes.
The forearm off of the ropes, yeah.
And then his big botch against Seth, when he got pinned by Seth, he didn't kick out, but then they kind of,
yeah. But that I have never been a wrestler. I have never gone through wrestling training. I have heard wrestler trainers talk about that, though. you are always told it is your responsibility to kick out. The referee is always told you do not halt your count. It is on the other person. If you count to 3 and they were supposed to kick out, that is not on you.
Mhm.
Now, I'm sure these wrestlers are like, yeah, they say that now, but if we're on pay-per-view, it's my ass when I'm coming back through that thing. But
Right.
that is what I have always heard. Or maybe he's like, I didn't hear the one. And I always thought if I was a referee, I'd be screaming it 1.
Yeah.
So, and for some reason, I cannot remember why, is that I was a few minutes behind. I don't know if I had to pause to go to the restroom or something. I said, but this street fight is going to be intense. And it was a heavy hitting match. They went outside, and Drew is just hilarious with his bored at work.
Bored at work again. Man, I love it.
Yeah. And I said that to you, and you're like, yeah, I'm one of those likes.
Yeah.
And then Damian Priest did the Razor's Edge as well, but I knew that was Damian. And I said, Razor Ramon getting a lot of love here tonight, and I'm here for it. They go outside, kind of a back and forth until they go back in, and then Drew hits, was it the kick?
He hit the not the Claymore, the DDT on the steps.
Yes. And then gets the win. But now you can kind of say, like, Drew is one of those people, if he shows up and he's, now want to go against, I don't know, if he wanted to go against Seth, you're like, okay, I can see that. It doesn't hurt him. And I think now this could be like for them to take some time with Damian and then reintroduce him and have him go against Aleister Black now that Aleister Black is back, and they can go back and forth.
I think the what won him the match is he did the Claymore kick to his head into the chair. That's right. What got him the match. But I think what led up to it was the DDT onto the steps, and then obviously something happened, and then he was going for the old school, and then Drew pushed him off into the tables.
Yes.
And then got the chair. The chair had already been set up into the corner, and then when Damian got back into the ring, he hit the Claymore kick against his head, and I think that's what got the victory.
You're right.
But I will say, incredible match. Another 4.5 star from me. Like WrestleMania 2 from here is just on fire.
Yeah.
Night 2.
Yeah. So then we have the Intercontinental Championship match: Braun Breaker versus Finn Balor versus Penta versus Dominic Mysterio. All right. And I said it again, folks. If I say something and it doesn't come to pass, I will admit it. I thought Braun had this. I'm like, Braun's got this. I thought Finn and Dominic were going to start arguing that Penta was going to shine, but at the end, Braun had it. Now, it's a little later on, but I've got to bring it up first thing. I don't know how much Braun or anybody else got paid for WrestleMania. That is between them and the WWE. But I hope he slips Carlito some money, because Carlito the past 3 weeks or so has sold for that. I mean, even on social media, he goes, I'm actually dead. That first one killed me.
Brilliant. I will say, leading into the match, I thought Penta was going to take it. That's who I thought was going to take it. Because I thought there was going to be a turn between whether it be Finn on Dominic or Dominic on Finn. I did see that's what I thought was going to happen in the match. But
and you saw a little bit of them going back and forth, and you saw Penta shine some. You saw that insane spear to Carlito from one table to the other, and they demolished that announce table. You saw the wood fragments everywhere, and that made me nervous because I saw the new tables. I'm like, oh, they're not going to put anybody through tables this year, and it happened both nights. But I'm like, that does not collapse as easily as that other table did, because you did see the fragments. I'm like, what if that went into somebody's eye or face or the crowd? And I'm like, no, they're going to have something worried about the crowd a little bit later on with the WWE Hall of Famer, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But Dom sets up and does a 619. He also does a frog splash and all of that. And I said, Dom could pull off an upset, and about halfway through, the crowd realizes it too, and they start cheering for Dom. And again, I was just so excited. I said, he did it. He gets the pin. After, was it Finn or was it Penta had done something? Because he ends up like pinning both of them.
I can't remember exactly. I just remember that he hit Balor with the 619 after Penta, I think, was taken out in the ring, and then he frog splashed Balor. Now, I can't remember, did he pin Balor for the title, or did he pin Penta?
I am looking now.
Yeah, because like I said, I can't remember off the top of my head.
So this is from Bleacher Report. Ultimately, it was the Judgment Day teammates who defined the closing moments after an enormous spear from Breaker to Carlito through an announce table, and Balor's coup de grace to the champion. Mysterio sees an opening and produced a frog splash. Second later, he pinned Balor and won the title, drawing a surprisingly large pop from the fans. The match exceeded expectation and was a lot of fun. A demolition derby of sorts that rightly kept the spotlight on Breaker while crowning a new champion in a manner that will prepare one of the longest running storylines in WWE forward. Because it's important to note that while he did lose the title, that Braun did not get pinned. So he still kept strong there.
Yes, that's what it was. Is the coup de grace was hit on Braun, and then Dominic hit the frog splash on both of them and pinned Balor. I had to go watch it on YouTube real quick. And then, because as much as he was getting cheered, he ran out of the ring. They were cheering him, and then he ran back in to do his title celebration.
Right. So then we get the Randy Orton Open Challenge because Kevin Owens is injured, and he comes out and they go over it again. And who's it going to be? And then they focus on the entrance, and the music hits, say his name, and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry. And the TNA World Champion is having a one-on-one match at WrestleMania. Who would have thought?
It was very quick. Very quick. But I will say, I don't know if it's true or not, but I read a thing that a couple people were picked for Orton, and he said no, and he chose Joe Hendry himself.
I have heard that as well. In fact, I think Joe Hendry said that in a interview that he did. And while I understand everybody's like, oh, that's their world champion, and he had this quick match that was mostly dominated by Orton, Hendry did hit a move and then does his spinning look thing, and then boom, I will say that is the best camera work I saw, I think, all weekend. It is framed perfectly in the center. He does his thing, and then boom, RKO out of nowhere to get the pin. It lasted maybe 3 minutes.
Yeah, and even I think it was Joe Hendry said himself, it really wasn't about the match. It was more about the moment, and he was happy. So
right. And he says, I understand people will say, oh, it was a total squash. He goes, no, squash would be in his opponent TNA World Champion Joe Hendry RKO pin. He goes, did it last as long as he wants? No. He goes, but that's not what I was there for. But it was a good 3-minute match, and you can build on that much later on. I think we'll see Joe Hendry in the WWE full time before the year is out, and he's doing things with NXT, and they've got Ethan Page on their pay-per-view and all of that, and it's not bad. And then, oh goodness, I can tell you the next one, AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. I'm just still not a Logan Paul guy, although I will say it was pretty cool when he came out and he handed that guy a thing. He goes, that guy's rich. It says late in Sunday's contest, Paul's manager, Jeff, attempted to sneak him a pair of brass knuckles, but Karrion Kross emerged from nowhere to stop him and implored Styles to embrace the dark side and utilize them. The veteran refused and rocked Kross before attempting a phenomenal forearm. Paul dodged it, rocked him with the right hand, and delivered the pulverizer for the pinfall victory. And I hope they now do something with Karrion Kross. He was I don't know if you saw, did you see?
I did. Yes, I did.
His whole thing about being frustrated, and even Scarlett's like, what are you doing?
He let them know that he wasn't happy. I will say that I thought that this was probably other than the main event, but the main event I will give benefit of the doubt once we get there, because I'll explain like what I think. But I think that this was probably the worst match of the night, and not because it was bad per se. It just had a really slow start, and it wasn't as good as you would hope it would be, because AJ Styles is in the match and he's incredible. Again, not a bad match, but I think it was probably just the most lackluster of the night.
Yeah, I agree with that. This is what I think they should do. They should build on this and have people totally not involved with whatever Paul Heyman is building. Is that you have what I call the frustrated superstars contingent. You have Karrion Kross, you'd have Damian Priest, you have Bayley, because Bayley's like, she had a thing with Chris Van Vliet where she was very frustrated, because she's like, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I never complain. I never bust in there and go, this is what I want, or I'm not doing this. She goes, nope, I am up for anything that they want me to do. And she goes, I keep just getting and make that a storyline. All right. So then we've got the women's tag team championship match. Who will replace Bayley? So the match was Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez versus Lyra Valkyria and the returning Becky Lynch, who got a fantastic ovation. She got a fantastic ovation when she came back, but it's been over a year, or almost a year. She was in at Backlash last year, but it's been almost a year since we've seen her. She, I guess, got her revenge, got to avenge her loss to Liv Morgan from last year by defeating her and Raquel Rodriguez to capture the WWF Women's Tag Team Championship for one day, because they lost the tag team titles back to Liv and Raquel the next night, as well as then Becky turned on Lyra Valkyria, so to set that up, and they think that she's going to be with Paul and Seth and Braun Breaker for what happened the following night on Raw?
It wasn't a bad match, but I will say I'm just not a fan of Becky Lynch.
Right.
Her in-ring work compared to like the current women on the roster, she's not on their level. And like it shows in ring, but also too, like you kind of brought up, it like she took that spot from Bailey. Is
Right.
ultimately what it boils down to. And like I can see why Bailey is frustrated because like Bailey was part of that story.
Mm-hmm.
She and then like just to be replaced, was it the day of WrestleMania?
It
Or
was either that day or the day before on SmackDown.
and then just to and then to be replaced, like not a fan of it.
Because of everything that Bailey has been through and all of that, and then last year winning the Rumble, and then the whole thing with Damage Control, and then coming back and winning all of that. And then one of my favorite moments after this is that they're going to announce the attendance for night 2. Now, I did not see this. I heard this on a podcast, is that they had to have another ramp built to come up onto the main ramp, because you can't drive an ATV through the gorilla position because there's like monitors and tables and all of that set up and people there. So they have that, and they have Stone Cold come through. Well, apparently he revved it too much or wasn't able to turn it back there. So he overshot the area. So now he's trying to back up, and he can't do that well. So they've got all these production people coming over, and they're trying to pull it back, and they're announcing him, and he's not there because he's overshot it. So they finally get him up, and he's running there, and I'm sure he's thinking to himself, oh man, I've got to be at such and such a place. I got to make up some time. And we talked about it for the Patreon when we did WrestleMania, what was it, 27 or 26 that way, whatever we did. The rest 25. We did WrestleMania 25. And he came out for the Hall of Fame. And I said, he was on the ATV. He was going around. They moved things out of the way like, hey, folks, he can't stop. And he stopped there and ran right into a woman at ringside.
Man, okay. There are a couple of thoughts on that. For one, he went around once already. That should have been enough. For two, when he hit the barricade, like there's fan footage from the thing that happened, and it reminds me to the Mark Henry and Batista incident way back. It's probably like 2007 or 8, when Mark Henry pushes him, and then Batista does like a few steps back and then throws himself down.
Yeah.
The woman, after he hit, it was like a solid 2-3 seconds, and then she threw herself down on the ground.
The podcast I was listening to, they said the same thing. It was like, wait, what the heck? But the guy, I guess, who either released that footage, or the guy next to him goes, Stone Cold just hit a woman apparently, and she's pissed about it.
Yeah.
So later on, he goes and checks on her. Nick Khan is over there like right away, like, are you okay? Because I don't know what her name is, Karen. Next year, you don't want it to be Karen Mania.
Yeah.
Presented by TKO and WWE.
Don't need no lawsuit.
She'll own Stone Cold. It'll be Stone Cold Karen walking around with an ATV.
True.
But Austin acknowledges the crowd and says it's 63,226. But then he says that they probably got it wrong, so he starts counting again. Thankfully, he only got up to about 20. And so they do the whole 2-night attendance, and they celebrate all of the money that they made and all of the people that bought tickets, I guess. So then it's time for our main event for the undisputed WWE Championship. The champion Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. So Cena out first, and he did not acknowledge the camera when he comes out. He tells them they get nothing. So he goes out, and then we've got a bunch of dirt bikes come out, and they do a dirt bike entrance and all that. And then you hear wrestling has more than one royal family. Cody comes up with his skull helmet, and this year it flips up.
Like the Iron Man mask.
Yes. So he comes down, and Brandy and his daughter and his mom and all of that. So he greets the entire family. I believe his sister was also there. All of that. The crowd does the whoa and all of that. They get in the ring and they start their match and I just was not feeling it. I don't know what it was a perfectly acceptable match. It wasn't like anybody was sandbagging each other like the Charlotte Tiffany match, but it just didn't feel like that they were on the same page or what.
Okay, so I'll give my thoughts on the match. It was just an average match. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't good either. I think the reason why it wasn't as good as probably we wanted it to be is because John Cena is definitely wrestling a light schedule, obviously, because he probably is still doing movie roles and whatnot.
Sure.
So he's trying not to get hurt. So I think that is probably the reason why he wrestled the way he did, and he really didn't take many bumps during the match or whatnot. So which is why I kind of give it benefit of the doubt. But the problem with it is Travis Scott came out, and you're like, okay, so then Cody gets his revenge on Travis Scott by hitting the Crossroads. And you're like, okay, so The Rock's going to come out next.
Yep. And
The Rock no-showed WrestleMania. He wasn't there. So it's like, okay. So then Cena hits Cody with the belt and then, wins the match. It was so lackluster because the story built up to it. There was none of the story going into it, if that makes sense.
Right.
So on top of just being kind of like a dry match, The Rock not being there to, make sure Cena wins the match like his champion, and yeah, that's my thoughts.
No, I completely get it, and I can do a whole nother podcast on just The Rock stuff. And he's like, because he came out and did something with Pat McAfee's like, we never said that I was going to be there, and I think it would overshadow John Cena and everything that happened if I had been there. I'm like, you're absolutely right. Nobody said you were going to be there. That is absolutely true, but you kind of set it up to make it seem like you were going to be there, especially when Travis Scott comes out.
Right.
And somebody said, like, you could still have everything that happened. So they set up this scenario. All right, imagine this scenario. Travis Scott comes out, and I sent a thing out on Threads. I said, Travis Scott, I just threw up in my mouth a little.
Yeah.
It took him 2 minutes to come to ringside from the time that he shows up. Somebody said he comes to ringside. Let's say it was quicker than that. He comes to ringside and he goes to interfere. Brandy jumps the rail and takes out Travis Scott. The crowd would have been gone crazy for that. All right. Cody and Cena go back and forth a little bit more. And The Rock then comes out and he goes back. But then Stone Cold comes out and takes out The Rock. Then, no matter what happens, I feel like the crowd would have been more satisfied. You still could have done the thing at the end with the chair and Cody, or the title, and Cody refuses to use it, and then Cena takes advantage, hits Cody, and wins the title. But then people would have been like, all right, I feel better about this, because at least you kind of paid off. The other thing is that they had already done the face wrestler does not want to win that way thing with AJ just 2 matches before this. And they do all that. So it just felt flat. And my wife watched all, but I think she literally went to bed, Tyler, about 1 minute before Travis Scott comes out.
Mm.
So she saw none of that. And she's like, Cena is just looking old here. She's like, it looks like he just can't move, or he's not as crisp as he has been in the past. I'm like, he doesn't wrestle
right
all the time. He was in the Rumble. He didn't win it. Then he was in Elimination Chamber, and then this is his 3rd match. He's done some appearances, but he hasn't done any matches and all of that. So it just up until I was really, for the most part, pleased. I didn't like the AJ Logan thing because I'm not a Logan Paul fan. There were a couple of other moments in there, but I was overall extremely pleased with night 2 up until just about the time that Travis Scott comes out.
yeah I mean, like I said, it was just kind of I understand why it was the way it was, but there could have been some, like you said, there could have been some scenarios thrown into that the last match that made it better. But what do we know?
Right. I'm sure by the time we get to WrestleMania 42, you're like, it all makes sense. Just like Cody not winning at 39 made sense for 40. I think 2 things. I think that this upcoming WWE series, the behind the scenes series that they're doing for Netflix, I think that's going to show like they had something in mind, and every time Rock comes in, he just messes it up. I think this is going to be bad for The Rock, because it's going to show all of that. They're like, here's what we're going to do. And they're like, The Rock's like, nope, we're not going to do that. I want to get involved. And they're like, damn it, tear everything up.
That's pretty much how it feels.
Yep. So I think that's what's going to happen. Overall,
I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that people give Triple H a lot of heat for like bad booking, and in reality, I don't think some of it you can argue that probably is bad booking, but I think some of it is literally that he comes up with this great thing, and then The Rock comes in and ruins it. Because he just, obviously he's on the board and he's going to use his power to do what he wants. And I feel like that was literally part of the main event's problem.
Right. And I don't know if we talked about it or I talked about it with my boss, because he kind of keeps up with wrestling, and he asked me about what I think about it. But it was like when he comes back and they do the whole thing for Elimination Chamber, it was like, I think Cody should turn heel. And Cody's like, either Cody, Triple H, or a combination of both is like, that makes no sense. And Cody's like, apparently Cody said, I'm not averse to becoming a heel, but in this situation, it makes no sense.
Right.
And so they're like, we'll do it with Cena then. But take out Travis Scott, or you can even leave Travis Scott in it. He's a rapper. Cena's a rapper. They could say, oh, we've been involved in things and he's going to help me get my edge back. You could have had that entire thing happen without The Rock there, and it makes it better for my way of looking at it. But I'll say overall, I'm going to judge the thing overall, the main event overall. The whole lack of The Rock there takes away a star from me.
Agreed.
The actual ending, the way that they had to do it from that, I'll take a half of a star away, and then another star because it just felt like there was something missing. Maybe night 1, I wasn't that hyped up about it up until the main event and another couple of things. So overall, out of 5, I give it a 2.5.
Yeah, I'm about the same. Yeah, actually, I'd give it exactly a 2.5.
Yeah. So overall, night one, it felt like the pre-show to WrestleMania. Thankfully, they have split it into 2 nights. I used to be opposed to that. I'm like, no, you're diluting WrestleMania. But could you imagine that they would have tried to get all of that up in one night? It would have been 7 hours long, and we'd have been dragging
Yeah.
by the end of it. So thankfully they did not do that. But afterwards, on the Raw after WrestleMania, Cena comes out and says, I'm going to ruin wrestling. Yeah, I'm going to retire with this. And here's all the dates, and you've got all of these, and here's how many are left. And I'm going to retire with this, and you'll have another champion. They'll crown another champion, but it'll never be the same. And who rolls out from under the ring but Randy Orton? And boom,
Bam. RKO.
Out of nowhere. And somebody says this time, though, it's the first time that the roles are reversed. It's Orton is the face and Cena is the heel. So that'll be interesting. And they've signed it for Backlash, which is in St. Louis, Randy Orton's hometown. So that'll be interesting. And then we've got also Heyman and Rollins, and they are confronted by Punk, and then they're confronted by Roman Reigns, and then boom, spear out of nowhere, this hooded figure who takes his hood back, and it's Braun Breaker. And they're like, is Heyman setting up a new dangerous alliance? So that'll be interesting to see. And we already talked about Becky turns on Lyra, and so we're starting to see where we go. It'll be interesting to see if The Rock shows back up, or what we're going to see from that. Where does Cody go from here? But it'll be interesting to see, Tyler. And I've been thinking, and I hope that you're okay with this, but folks, Tyler's going to continue to be my co-host for the Cup of Joe on Patreon, but I've decided going forward, Tyler, if it's okay with you, anytime the WWE has a 2-night extravaganza, I'm going to have you on the regular show so that we can talk about it. I usually have what I call a 5-year rule, is that I try not to do anything that's newer than 5 years. But I'm going to make an exception when they have 2-night things like WrestleMania, and coming up at the beginning of August, SummerSlam this year is 2 nights, and you've already talked about it. You're going to try to get down here so we can watch that together. Yeah. I have that weekend off. I do not have to work that weekend, so I have the time. I'm going to take the time so that we can spend some time together, do some stuff, and also watch SummerSlam. So that'll be interesting. We can do it kind of in person like we did WrestleMania last year.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I'm good with that.
So that is cool. It'll be interesting to see where the WWE go from here, but I think they've started the setup really well, at least for Backlash. And I don't see, this is Joey. This is just Joey speaking. I don't see any major plot points happening between now and I think they're going to put it on kind of cruise control again. Maybe some minor things will happen, but I think they're going to kick it into overdrive, starting with Money in the Bank and then SummerSlam to set up the second half of the year. All right, Tyler. So I think we've done it. We've thoroughly covered every angle of WrestleMania 41 from Las Vegas. Las Vegas is now in the rearview mirror, and as far as WrestleMania is concerned, New Orleans, you are on the clock.
That's true.
For WrestleMania 42 in 2026. And I'm hoping before then they're going to announce WrestleMania 43. And this is what I'm thinking. I'm hoping for Nashville. I'm thinking that they're either going to Indianapolis as part of their thing, or it won't be, I was going to say Minnesota, but Minnesota gets SummerSlam next year.
Mm.
So I'm thinking it'll either be Indianapolis or Nashville.
Hopefully.
If it is, I'll say this: if it's Saudi Arabia, Joey's not going to Saudi Arabia.
No, neither am I.
But Tyler, I don't know. Last time that we did this, you were in the midst of changing all of your socials. Have you changed all of your socials?
I have not.
Okay. All right. So if you need Tyler, folks, get in contact with me. I'll put you in contact with Tyler. Or tell me what you want to say to Tyler. And if I don't like it, I won't pass it on to Tyler. So there is that. I am at the Joey Harris on Facebook, Threads, and Instagram. And also, if it's a social media and you're on it, you need to get in contact with me. I'm at the Joey Harris on it. But Tyler, thank you again. And folks, we will see you next time.
Bye.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.